Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello everybody, Bob Lusk here, the Pond Boss. It must be Tuesday, 6:30 Central Time. Let's hang out, talk about some cool pond stuff. Hey, bring me some questions. Won't take long for me to get through this agenda that I hadn't figured out yet. I thought I'd talk about lake mapping tonight. A bathymetry map. You ever heard of that big word? So, had the pleasure to go meet a new client earlier this week that just bought a piece of property, got a great lake on it. Cannot wait to hang out with him some more and figure out what's going on with that lake and see what we can do to make it better, to grow some big fish, which that lake's got some years on it. It's probably already got some good fish in it. But I wanted to start off the conversation tonight talking about bathymetry maps. So basically what a bathymetry map is a map of the contours of the bottom of a lake. Well, this lake's pretty good sized, and I know that it's going to need some habitat improvements because it was not built to be a fishing lake. It was built to be a flood prevention lake. Now, most of these flood prevention lakes were designed to last 50 to 60 years. This one was built in 1971. So, in theory, it's outlived its usefulness, but it hasn't. This lake is pretty big. It's over 100 acres, which is going to be the biggest flood prevention lake I think I've looked at ever. And the guy that just bought it is really fired up about it. And as a matter of fact, he watches these videos, and I don't want to name him because I didn't ask him if I could. And I don't want to tell you where the lake is because I didn't ask him if I could. But I know this, for a lake that's over 100 acres, having a bathymetry map is going to be a real valuable tool on a number of fronts. Hello, John Dyer. Hey, I read your article a while ago. I'm going to run that article in Pond Boss. That's really good. John Dyer wrote an article about his attendance at the last Institute of Higher Pondology that we did just a few weeks ago. And he really nailed it. And I want to share that with everybody that subscribes to Pond Boss. So that's going to be in the January-February issue of Pond Boss, John. And I really appreciate from the bottom of my heart, if my heart has a bottom, I don't know, I've never thought about that, your thoughtful words about the Institute of Higher Pondology. And I do want to promote that one, although I don't have any dates set for next year. We're going to look at that here in a few weeks and start looking at 2025 and see what we can figure out. So a bathymetry map is basically a contour map of the bottom of a lake. And the way it works is who's going to create the map uses a depth finder with GPS points, and it pings like it every 2 seconds. Then they go back and they create a map of about 2-foot contours to show the shape of the bottom of the lake. Now, these flood control lakes don't have habitat in them. Now, I know that this particular lake backed up over some standing timber, so I know there's some standing dead timber in this lake, but I don't know what's on the lake bottom. So once we figure out what the contours are, then we can start looking at fish distribution. Where are the fish located in that lake? And we'll do that through electrofishing as well as maybe some live scope looking to see how they're distributed. That lake is going to have, I bet you it will have 30 species of fish in it. I know it's going to have a couple species of gar. It's going to have carp, probably buffalo, gizzard, shad, largemouth bass, channel catfish, warmouth, green sunfish, bluegills. It's produced some 10-plus pound bass, so I know there's been some Florida strain fish stocked in there from time to time. We're probably going to do a genetic study, but everything's going to start with water quality. It's going to start with a bathymetry map so we can begin to see why the fish are where they are and what can we do with habitat to begin to improve that habitat in that lake to make it a better fishing lake. Now, one of the things I learned a long time ago, and I'll share with you guys, and I've told you this over and over, 90% of the fish typically live in 10% of the lake, and that 10% changes with the seasons. So if we can figure out how to have 20% of that lake basin with prime habitat, spawning beds, fish congregation areas, mats of vegetation, and I know the upper part of that lake is really shallow, and I'll be stunned if it doesn't vegetate. He's only owned it for 5 days now, so he doesn't really know the history, so we're going to study that and figure that out. And the bathymetry map is going to be a very, very important tool, and it could be an important tool for you guys as well, because especially if you've got a lake that's got, some size to it, 6, 8, 10 acres bigger, and you just bought it, you're not exactly what you need to do to improve the habitat, then a bathymetry map. So John Dyer is saying exactly what I need to do next. Recommended equipment for mapping. I'm going to bring somebody in to do that. But I know this. What the maps are is GPS points that are associated with the depth, and they're random points. And for a 100-acre lake, it's probably going to take 6 hours pinging every 2 seconds, going back and forth to cross that lake, just back and forth over and over, and then back and forth, side to side, then lengthwise to get enough data points. And a 100-acre lake is probably going to take 200,000 or more data points to build an accurate map. So that will work with a depth finder that also associates the GPS point with the depth. And then I don't know how to do that. John, you're way more sophisticated on things like that than this guy is. Hello, Chuck Anzalone. Good to see you, buddy. Tom Davis. Scott. Hope your bride's hanging out with you tonight. John Funk gets to hang out finally. Good gosh. John Funk's one of the busiest guys on the planet to be from mid-Michigan. Mike Contrell, Palapinda County. John Harrison, good to see you, buddy. So, anyway, you guys start pitching a few questions at me. But a bathymetry map is going to be real important to a lake that size, because he could throw a whole lot of money at fish habitat and not get anywhere. John Funk, is the 10% true of a small pond as it is for lake? Yes, it is. The difference with a small pond is that, hello, Danny Mac. Good to see you, buddy. Cheers to Danny Mac. Water. Woodford. The 10% is true. The difference with a small pond is you can actually ramp up your productivity and grow more fish per unit of water in a small pond than you can in a big lake. And if you look at it like this: a 100-acre lake is going to have a variety of niches. It's going to have a big open water niche. It's going to have places for different species of fish to thrive. This lake being whatever it is, 71, 39, 29, 39, 49, 55 years old, that lake is what it is because of what it offers to those fish. And the fish have responded to what they've been offered. And I know there's records of double-digit bass being caught in that lake, which means there's enough habitat in there to support the food chain. The water's got to be pretty happy, which, looking at the water yesterday, it looked pretty happy to me. I think I looked at it, Monday or whatever. Monday. I looked at it yesterday. I have a hard time keeping up with what day it is. It's part of the fun of this job, which I don't have a job. So, anyway, but it's also got niches for carp, shallow water. It's got a muddy bottom, gizzard shad. It's got rocky shores, bluegill spawning. So all those different habitat elements are going to help create what that lake's fishery has become. And it's going to be really, really fun to go over there and figure all that out and then teach the landowner. He is really excited, and I can't blame him. He's worked over 25 or 30 years of his adult life to get to the point where he can slow down just a little bit and absorb these natural laws and these things that happen with the lake and the in the riparian areas around it. When we were driving around in a side-by-side, we saw an immature bald eagle. And the bald eagle, that baby eagle had to be 4 years old because it had a white face, but the rest of its feathers were kind of a mottled color. So pretty dadgum cool, and it's going to be a really fun exercise for him to learn about all that. Okay, let me see here. John Funk. Oh, there's Howard. Dr. Dittrich. Hello, Howard. Good gosh, good to see you, buddy. I think about you often in Florida and Iowa and everything that you do that's so cool. So John Funk says, that was fun. You went into triple time in streaming. I'm not sure what that means, but I'll take it because it's way better than the last fight I watched. Did you guys watch any of that fight, that fake fight? Or maybe it wasn't fake. It wasn't wrestling, but whatever. I guess I can't wait to see how Netflix handles the NFL at the end of this year and going into next year. They better figure that out, or there'll be some mutinies going on the bounty. John Arson, I'm thinking about splitting two 55-gallon barrels lengthwise for channel catfish spawning. I'd like very limited spawning in our 2-acre lake. What do you think? I think I would never allow channel catfish to spawn in any pond. Woo, that kind of took you by surprise, didn't it? If you split, let me go at it this way. If you split, channel catfish are cavity spawners. Just visualize, and John, I don't remember how old you are, but look at a cavity like the first catfish farmers used milk jugs, not milk jugs, but they were milk jugs. The metal milk containers like a dairy used to have, with a small opening, probably held 10 gallons of milk. But channel catfish like to get in there and spawn. They won't spawn in a half-cut barrel. The problem about letting channel catfish spawn in a 2-acre pond is how many babies are you going to get? You have no idea. In a 2-acre lake, you may, if you're real serious about growing some channel catfish, you may only want to grow, if you want to grow them to sell fingerlings, then yeah, let them spawn in there. But if you want them to grow because you want to grow some food, don't. Go buy the numbers you need, grow them up, and then butcher the little boogers and eat them. But John, you're the smallmouth bass grower. You may want to have some channel catfish. Well, when you say very limited spawning, let me tell you how to limit the spawning. Don't put the barrels in there. Go buy a couple of 100 channel catfish every other year and grow them up. Don't even think about trying to let them spawn in your pond. Howard Dittry, how often should you add new bass genetics to your lake? That's up for a little bit of debate, but I'm going to tell you what I think. I want to come at you from several angles here. I think adding improved genetics every 2 to 3 years is a wise idea. And I don't like that word probably. Probably doesn't mean anything. I'm a fan of stocking 50 to 100 fingerlings each spring of the years you're going to stock some. Anticipating that 90% of them are going to get eaten. So if you stock 100 fingerlings, for example, per acre in a 10-acre lake, you stock 1,000 bass, you spend $1,500, 90% are going to get eaten. That means 100 didn't. That means that 50 boys and 50 girls are likely to make it to adulthood. So then they can begin to influence the gene pool with their genetics. So even if 99% get eaten, if 1% of those 1,000 live, there you go. You got 10 fish that made it to adulthood that can influence your gene pool. Now, I think there's a misconception out there. I think people presume that the genetics deteriorate over a longer period of time. I'm not convinced of that. I've done enough genetic studies to see that a fishery with these genetics that were influenced 30 years ago still have those genetics. I think the difference is that the survival rate of the young of the year is such that maybe the best of the best don't make it. Because even if you've got the best genetics on the planet, that doesn't mean every fish with those genetics is going to be a hero. Doesn't mean they're going to be huge. Doesn't mean they're going to have the potential to grow at fast rates. A lot of that's going to, that happens, but it's going to be dictated by, do they get eaten or not? Are they able to adapt to that environment or not? So I think there's a lot more environmental issues going on than what a lot of people think when they start talking about genetics. All right, so let's see here. John says, I'm very happy with my bluegill growth. Do you think they looked? Yeah, I think they look great in the pictures that you sent. Tim Stewart, checking in from Florida. Trey Carpenter. I love Trey Carpenter because he always sets me straight. Milk cans. There you go, milk cans. That tells you how old that guy is. Okay, so John says you make a cave with them. Well, I don't know how to make a cave with a half-cut barrel. I'd rather see, if you're going to use a barrel, leave the barrel whole, drill some holes in the, like when you lay it in the water, cut open about an 8-inch hole in the top of the barrel, anchor it, and drill holes in what's the top of the barrel after you anchor it so all the air can escape. If you really want to make catfish spawn. Scott Schillig chiming in. He and Kenny stumped me last week. They were little smarty pants boys last week. New pond. What species of fish are better to stock in the fall and what species are better to stock in the spring? Does that recommendation change for northern ponds versus southern ponds? Yes. The answer is yes. So Scott, good question. So here we go. You forgot why. John Harsey, don't put them in like a trough. They're flipped over. Try it and see. I'd rather buy 2 barrels instead of taking one, cutting it in half. There's my opinion. Okay. Do we need to draw you a picture? I can't read. Hey, John, you've got your mind made up. Go do it, and then you send us a picture of the baby fish. I love me some John Harson. The guy is a smallmouth bass magnate. He is in the right part of the planet, in the right place, with the right pond to grow more smallmouth bass per unit of water than anybody on the planet. And Scott, if you haven't met John, you need to do that. Hey, Katie Burke's checking in from the Texas Freshwater Fisheries Center. Katie, I just uploaded had Leanne just upload the Hall of Fame video today on YouTube. And Katie, I'm going to tell you something. Katie Burke, she and her team orchestrated my induction to the Texas Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. And she did an astonishing job. I mean, we walked in there. It was unbelievable. It was like Disneyland for a guy like me who doesn't go to Disneyland. But it was really, really fun. They put fish in Lake Zebco today. 17 largish bass. That's cool. Very cool. Hope you took pictures. Send some. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Scott here. New pond. What species of fish are better to stock in the fall and what species? Well, if you got a brand new pond and it filled up recently, get your forage fish in place. It doesn't matter whether you're in the north or the south. You know, you'll have a different variety of forage fish based on where you are. Fathead minnows will be in either one, north ponds or southern ponds. Either one, you'll have fathead minnows. In southern ponds, you'll stock fathead minnows with bluegill fingerlings and some red ear sunfish. In northern ponds, you'll be looking at pumpkin seeds and maybe some bluegills based on your goals. But get your forage fish in position in the fall to set the stage and set the table to be able to stock some game fish next spring. That's how you want to do that. Northern ponds are different than southern ponds because of the species that you use. You know, you're going to use red ear in northern Indiana up there where you have this thing called winter. You know, in southern ponds, you have this thing called summer. So pumpkin seeds aren't going to work in Texas, and red ear sunfish aren't going to work in northern Indiana up there where Notre Dame lives. So yes, the recommendation does change. Now, if you just built a pond and it's, you know, a third of the way full, here's my guidelines for that. If a pond in the fall has been built and it has at least half of the volume or half of the surface area is covered with at least 8 feet of water, then go ahead and stock forage fish. You don't necessarily need to stock the maximum numbers, but stock enough where they can at least begin to grow up and begin to reproduce a little bit, especially in southern ponds. Northern ponds, it's a good idea to go ahead and stock some forage fish, just because you want them to be able to get in there and establish before some of the native fish do. So there you go. Jason Dodd, while on largemouth bass genetics. Jason Dodd from Wichita, Kansas. Car guy. Fish fanatic. Where's John at? John, you boys need to talk. And here you are talking in my show. You guys hold hands and cross the street safely. I love you guys. This is so much fun. While on largemouth bass genetics, I can't believe I caught a 1.21 pound, that's pretty precise, and a 2.22 pound largemouth bass the same day in the same area of the pond. New stocking, so they have to be the same age. Yes, that's right. And that right there, Jason Dodd, tells you, it really paints the picture of how a different fish of the same gene pool, the same sizes when you stock them, how they grow at different rates. So when you stock when you catch a 2.22, a 2.25 pound largemouth bass, and one that's half that size, and they're the same age, that exemplifies exactly the point I'm making about, even though their genetics are the same, they have the same environment, they're going to grow at different rates. And the plasticity, there's that big word again, of your pond is conducive to the success of those fish that thrive in it. Digest that. I'm not sure what I just said, but it works, I'm telling you. So, yes, those fish are the same age, and there's going to be a percentage of them that just excel. I mean, just, think about football players. How many great high school players are there? There's a lot. And the best of the best go on to college. Then you got Division I, Division II, and Division III football players. Those D1 players, they're great. But how many of those are going to go to the NFL? Not many. And so the point is your fishery is going to react the same way. You're going to see some just amazing growth rates of the best fish. Those are the ones that I think need to be preserved, released, and even when they reproduce, their babies are going to do the same thing. A percentage of their babies, first of all, since we're talking about largemouth bass with Jason's question, half are boys, half are girls. The boys are not going to get very big. The girls are. And only about 25 or 30% of those girls in that circumstance are going to have what it takes to grow huge if they don't get eaten by their older siblings or their older brothers and sisters or their cousins from years ago. So that's part of the fun of this lake management deal. John Harson, where do you get smallmouth bass? I don't have any, should I? Oh, dude, I may have you mixed up with somebody else. I do that from time to time. Michael Eric, thank you, from Iowa. Yeah, I need me some bourbon. You're killing me. Oh, John Dyer won an Hall of Fame glass. Leanne says, she just chimed in. He's already got one. Put it back in the mix. Okay, Katie, we got video. Yeah, I got the video. I uploaded it to I think, I'm pretty sure that Tom sent it to me, but I uploaded it to YouTube. Mark Dyer from, Mark is up in Omaha, not Omaha, but he's in Nebraska. Difference of male versus female, perhaps. What were their relative weights? Oh, okay, there you go. Ooh, Mark's getting a little technical there. He's talking to Jason Dodd, which Jason's near Wichita, Kansas. Okay, ready to work in Iowa, but don't seem to thrive. Yeah, that's true. Deborah Corlew, Herman Brothers are the best. They're really, really good. I love the Herman Brothers. Nate Herman came to a Pond Boss conference, good gosh, back like in 2007. I think he was 19 years old. He didn't tell anybody who he was or what he was thinking. And he came to either the first or second Pond Boss conference, and he went home and then started a business, and it's grown immensely. Where a lot of guys go to college, Nate Herman went to work. He and his little brother, and they created a pond management company, and oh my gosh, they're thriving. They had a reality show. They got courted for that, and good gosh, those guys are just outstanding. After hearing we wanted a contest for grandkids to catch an albino catfish, they threw it in an order for free. That along with the golden trout. Now we don't have the grandkids wanting to win. The kids want in on the action. Fun times in northwestern Illinois. Yep, there you go. Do red ear get substantially bigger than pumpkin seeds? Kind of depends on where you are. Uh-oh. I just ran off here. Oh, there it is. Oh, Scott, I love you, dude. I thought I'd throw you a balloon. I thought I'd float you a balloon after last week's question about starry stonewort. Here's the starry stonewort. Hey, Leanne, get John a hat. John should have got a hat. Let's get him another one. Buddy Floyd. Hey, Buddy, good to see you, man. Buddy's from over in Mississippi. He is a premier lake builder. There we go. Look at that. John and Leanne are communicating. John Funk, planning projects for next season. What plants would be good for a floating island that will feed the fish and use the nutrients? You know, I think, I'll tell you what I think about that. A floating island is not so much about the plants that are going to feed fish and use nutrients. Well, nutrients probably so. We got several floating islands back when we had LL, 2. Bruce Kanya with Floating Islands International. We bought several floating islands from him, and we planted everything. I think one of them we planted St. Augustine grass on just to see if we could have a lawn growing out in the middle of a pond. But I tell you what we did. We planted a variety of herbs on one of them just to see what would grow. One of the herbs we planted was mint. That stuff went nuts. And as a matter of fact, not only did it go nuts, it spread to the shore. So we had different kinds of mint growing along our pond shores. And Debbie and I, like on a hot July day, we'd stick a bottle of white wine in some ice, and we'd go float the pond. And then I'd swim over and pull some mint off of one of those floating islands, and we'd nibble on that while we're drinking wine. And I'm a fish guy, so forget that I just told you that. I don't know why I did. The different kind of plants, we had cattails grow up on those floating islands. We had willow trees grow on them. We had, I tell you what we planted that was really, really fun. I don't know how well this would work in Michigan, but we planted some Louisiana irises, and they were a deep purple, almost a blue, deep purple. And they bloomed for about 2 to 3 weeks every spring. We loved that. That was pretty cool. All right, let me see here. Okay, you're talking about genetics. Where can a pond owner send samples to be tested? What should a pond owner expect to pay for that service? It depends on how serious you are. I've been talking to the guys at Red Hills, and they have identified up to 17 markers that trophy largemouth bass all have. And that can be kind of expensive. But I'm working on some other things. Expensive, here's what that means. 30 fin clips from largemouth bass to be analyzed by those guys is around $1,500. But if you've got a pretty big lake and that's important to you, that could be of some value. So there are other genetic testing services, and I'm kind of digging more into that charge a little bit less than that, like $300 or $400 for 10 fish. John Dyer, great close to your speech. You watched it earlier. Okay, so today we uploaded on YouTube on the Pond Boss YouTube channel We uploaded the video I was talking about earlier. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, Katie and her team, produced for my induction ceremony into the Hall of Fame. And we also uploaded the actual induction ceremony and the speech that I gave. My brother actually videoed that. And so that got uploaded. So if you want to see that, you can go to the Pond Boss YouTube page. And I think somebody uploaded that induction video onto this page here. So it's going to be below this. So if you want to watch the actual induction video, it's pretty darn cool. John, I'll take my beating. Pass it on to me, dude. Yeah, I don't know how I could confuse you. It might have something to do with the water I'm drinking tonight. I don't know. Because you're always on the move. Chuck, if you add bass to a pond that had tiger bass at the initial stocking, should you change if you add fingerlings to improve genetics? Here's my first gut reaction, Chuck. It's if you started with F1 tiger bass. So here's how American Sportfish does that. I had a long conversation with Sean McNulty a few months ago. What he does is they pit tag every one of their broodfish. So they know the genetic story of each one of those fish. So if they've got, like I say, for example, a female Florida bass that's 88% Florida, and he's shooting for 50% F1, he's going to go find a northern strain bass that matches the percentage to create that 50% mark. And then they spawn those in captivity in a tank on spawning mats, and then they hatch the fish. So if you want to begin to skew your genetics more towards, say, Florida strain, then stock some pure strain Floridas. If you're pretty content with the fish that you have, then stock a few more tiger bass or a few more, those F1 crosses. It really kind of gets fun because when an F1 begins to reproduce with another F1, that doesn't mean it's going to be 50% Florida and 50% native. It may be 60-40 or 70-30 or 30-70, and that's part of the fun. But, where it all gets a little confusing and contorted is who knows which ones of those are the best ones of all those. We don't know. So here's a direct answer. If you have any question about your genetic integrity, and if I remember right, Chuck, seems like I remember you're in Louisiana, I'd be looking at some pure strain Florida bass to stock there. All right, now then. I'm going to pause for a minute, do a little commercial. Pond Boss Magazine, say it with me, $35. I know John Dyer's saying it. Cheaper than I heard that. Friday night date, and it lasts a year. Pond Boss, $35. That's pretty cheap because you get some good nuggets out of each one of those issues, I promise. We have a variety of writers, a variety of topics. Each issue is timely for that time of the year. Speaking of that time of the year, it's getting late. It's dark here. My body thinks it's 8 o'clock, which I go to bed by midnight. Or not. Purina Mills. I love Purina Mills. I got to start working with those guys in 1995. I love how their research and development department works. They want to create the best products on the planet. Kenny Sanderson will be the first one to tell you their marketing may not be the best on the planet, but their products are really, really good. I'm a big fan of Purina simply because they came to me and said, hey, we want to work with guys like you to help build the best products to put on the market because we see the pond management industry as a burgeoning industry. So they did. Texas Hunter, I haven't heard from my good friend Chris Blood yet, but I got a feeling he's lurking out there somewhere. Texas Hunter, outstanding products and even better customer service. I haven't seen David Schneiderman tonight. He usually comes on. Easy Docks of Texas. If you're looking for a floating dock, he ain't the cheapest, but he's really good. So check that out. So we got Purina, Texas Hunter. Oh, and you know something else? It is hunting season. I want you guys that if you love to hunt and you don't have a place, go to Bird Dog. Go to birddogit.com and check that out. Now, for transparency, that's my son Jonathan's business. And even if he wasn't my son, I'm going to tell you, he's got a great idea. So look at birddogit.com, especially if you own a business. If you own a business and you want to treat some of your clients or some of your vendors or some of your financiers, look up birddogit.com. I mean, if you wanted to go hunting, you either have to have a friend with a ranch that needs to harvest some surplus animals or likes you enough to let you go shoot something, or you need to work with an outfitter, which pretty much means you need to plan your trip a year in advance, or you need to have a lease. And the way leases work nowadays, and Trey Carpenter, he's watching this, he'll be one of the first ones to tell you that lessors, they want to shove off as much liability onto their lessees as they can. Even now, you can, if you're going to have a hunting lease, you can be made responsible for the fences. And if the fences go down and the cow gets hit by a pickup, you could be held liable for that. Well, there's not a lot of guys that want to do that, and especially these guys that are mid-30s to late 40s that are raising kids. They don't have time to go fill feeders. They don't want to go set up a camp. They want to go hunting. You can go to birddogit.com, and if you want to be hunting hogs from a helicopter with an AR, you can be doing that next week. So go check that out and see what you think. It's pretty darn cool. Mark Dyer, are albino catfish just a channel catfish with genetics for that white color? And if so, when you stock them, will their offspring be only albino, or will they also produce? They will produce regularly colored catfish. The thing about albino catfish is they have a double recessive gene. So what that means is that albino can reproduce other albinos, but that doesn't mean it doesn't carry the gene for regular colored catfish. But typically, if an albino catfish has pink eyes, then it can only throw that double recessive albino gene. So if you breed an albino with an albino, you're going to get albinos. But that's if both of them have pink eyes. I see what John's saying. So a lot of those albinos have just carried that double recessive gene, even though both their parents might have been normally colored. So all that to say this, that if albinos are bred with albinos, they'll breed true. But if they're bred with another catfish of the normal color, the babies won't be. John Arson, Herman Brothers are great. I talked to Austin last week getting some northern Titan bass from them. There you go. So that Titan bass, that's Red Hills. That's who I've been talking with. And some tiger muskies. One of my clients got some tiger muskies last week, and I thought they were out. Josh Milski checking in. Josh is one of the Pond Boss moderators on the Pond Boss website forum, Ask the Boss discussion forum. Josh is from Nebraska, but he's now in Colorado with his job. Yeah, they're really good. Okay, John, I got your point, dude. Do I need to come okay, you know what? Oops. I do that. How much hybrid vigor do you lose between an F1 and FX hybrids? It's really, you really don't know. Because hybrid vigor hybrid vigor occurs typically in that first cross. So when you cross two crosses, you lose some of that hybrid vigor. But there's going to be a percentage of the fish that will have even more than the parents did if they don't get eaten. That is the struggle. That's the struggle. So let's see here. Ooh, I forgot to do that. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like. Share this video to your timeline and you're eligible for a drawing for whatever Leanne says. Looks like a hat nowadays. Hey, there's Virgil Meyer. He's from southeastern Iowa. Kenny Sanderson is the man. Yep, he is, Josh. He sure is. So, boys, throw me some more questions. Yeah, John, my bad. I'll take my beating. I took one last week from Scott and Kenny. I'll take one from you today because I've earned it. Don't make me make up my own questions. John says, I'm convinced with Aquamax, having great growth on my catfish and bluegill. That's the truth. There you go. So pitch me some more questions. In the meantime, I'm going to pick up this September, October issue of Pond Boss. I got the November, December issue in, but here it is right here. Here it is. Here's the November, December issue that came last week. And I'm going to leave it in the plastic bag because after I die, I think somebody will want it. I know, that was pretty macabre. So what? Woodford. What was the last of that? So on this issue in September, October, Dan Van Skyke wrote about solar farms. Right here where we live, along the Brazos River, southwest of, thanks for forgiving me, John. I'm not much of a beggar, but I will plead for that forgiveness. Cheers. Paul Holdeman. Dude, good to see you, man. Holy cow. Paul builds fantastic. Look him up. Wait till the show's over and then go to his Facebook page, and that guy builds some outstanding water features. He's based in Arizona. And oh my gosh, he does some really, really cool stuff. Del St. Julian, I have a pond management question. I have a 2-year-old 1.25 acre lake in the New York pond in New York Finger Lakes. I love the Finger Lakes. That's actually one of my favorite places on the planet. Beautiful country. Based on form recommendations, stocked fatted minnows and golden shiners spring of 23 when full, spawn like crazy. 180 yellow perch along with 50 pumpkin seeds in the summer and fall. 50 more pumpkin seeds in the summer. 24 in 2024 added paper shell crawfish. I love everything I'm reading. And 100 smallmouth bass. I love it. Only feed some, 5 minutes worth of strikes by hand in the summer. I expect the yellow perch at least to spawn in the spring, maybe the 23 pumpkin seeds. My goals are, and you, so far, dude, you're preaching my language. I'm following the book. I'm following the book of Dell here. You've got it. My goals are good fishing for the 7 soon grandkids. Some semblance of balance. Perch for Friday night. You must be a Catholic. I said that out loud. What should I expect to have to do to meet these goals? I'll probably never catch enough to get good statistics and too small to electrofish. Any advice is how to manage this? Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, you are right on track. So here's what you do. A 1.25 acre pond in the Finger Lakes. Ice fishing. I would be harvesting, let's see, 2023, here we are 2024. I would be catching and releasing most of the, okay, so you did the golden shiners and fatties in 23. Yeah, right now you need to be catch and release. But once you get to the point that you're starting to see some yellow perch that are big enough to eat, I start calling a few. Now here's good fishing for the 7 soon grandkids. Yeah, you're there. You should, with the feeding program you're doing, semblance. Okay, so balance. Here's what balance means. Balance means the different species of fish that you have different size classes, so they're reproducing. So your yellow perch are going to reproduce. They just need a place to lay their eggs, and they lay them in gelatinous strings. Stick a couple of Christmas trees out on the ice. You're going to ice up here in another 8 weeks. Go get some of your neighbor's Christmas trees, put them in 5-gallon buckets of concrete, set them on top of the ice in water about 8 feet deep. And if you haven't done this already, And then at ice out, they're going to sink right there where you've had them on the ice. Hopefully, they might migrate a little bit. And your yellow perch are going to spawn all over that. Once you verify that your yellow perch have begun to spawn, then once they get to be 12 to 13 inches long, harvest a few. You're going to be able to, let me see here, what else you got? Don't harvest any of your smallmouth bass for a while. You stocked 100 smallies, give them 2.5 years, then begin to cull a few smallmouth. Start harvesting some of your yellow perch when they're 12 or 13 inches long. You're going to only want to take maybe 15 pounds of yellow perch per acre per year, starting in late 2025. Don't harvest anything now. I'd go get those grandkids ice fishing. But what you want to do is you want to monitor their growth rates. You want to monitor their relative weights. I'm pretty sure we've got all the charts on relative weights of those species of fish. Matter of fact, I think there's an article in the November-December issue that covers some of that Dave Willis and I wrote years ago, and I recooked it and put that in the November-December issue. So be weighing and measuring some fish, making sure that you got places for your yellow perch to spawn, and if they don't, buy more. It's okay to do that. They don't cost that much, especially where you are in upstate New York. That's what I got to tell you about that. Jay Timmerman, I only have red ear and hybrid bluegill on a 3-year-old lake. Is there an easy way to determine if they're... Yeah, there is an easy way to tell. You can look at them, and if they don't look like a red ear and they don't look like a hybrid bluegill, then they're probably going to be a cross. So what you'll see is, if you've got red ear sunfish, they're pretty distinct in the way that they look, and hybrid bluegill are pretty distinct in the way that they look. However, they will cross. So when you catch a fish that doesn't look like a red ear or a hybrid bluegill, chances are that you've had some crossing, and that's likely going to have. Mark Dyer, my son has expanded the fishing opportunities. I talked to him today, and he does that. There you go. There's Paul Holdeman. Check him out, pondgnome.com. There you go. Throw him a bone. Paul Holdeman is, I'm going to tell you this about Paul. Across the nation, he has got to be, if he's not number one, he's way up the pipeline, way up the food chain. Josh Milski, in a pond with smallies and wipers, what stocking rates per year should I go with on hybrid bluegill? 1 acre pond, stocked 75 to start last spring. You know what, Josh? I'd probably stock 200 in a 1 acre pond as your smallmouth bass and wipers get bigger, because you're going to have attrition. As your wipers get bigger, of course, they're on fish food, and I can't imagine you're not feeding them. But with predatory rates and attrition as it's going to be, I'd probably stock 100 to 200 per acre each year. Virgil, I help Virgil. Virgil is an outstanding student of lake construction, fish habitat, fish management. And I got to coach him up on some things, and he absorbs it, like that proverbial sponge. Going to start harvesting fish. Your thoughts on small and large fish of each species, bluegill, sun. You know what, sunfish, perch, walleye, I'll be looking at relative weights. Now, what I expect to happen in your lake, Virgil's lake is, as I recall, around 6 acres, and with outstanding habitat, really good water. He's got a pond upstream that captures silt, and he's got a healthy amount of aquatic plant life. I'm going to say that when you get ready to harvest bluegill, don't take your biggest. Throw the biggest ones back. So you're in probably year 3 or 4. Any bluegills bigger than about 7 inches, throw those back, because they're going to be the ones that are going to cause the younger bluegill to get bigger. But if you want to eat some 5 to 7 inch bluegills, by all means do it. Plus, Virgil's feeding his fish, and he's feeding it a good fish food. Perch, 10 to 12 inches long, that's kind of my go-to. Once they get to that size, start culling a few, because they're going to reproduce in Iowa. Walleye, I'd be watching the relative weights. And after about year 3, you're going to see that there's going to be a class of those walleye that are bigger than the rest. leave those in there. Let those get to be as big as they can. Start taking some of the fish that are younger, but plan on culling some of the walleye that aren't gaining at the rates that you want, and you're going to want to stock more walleye later just for recruitment. Katie Burke, so we stocked 800 catfish and legs upcoming feeding. Do you recommend not feeding during the winter? I'll tell you what I recommend about feeding catfish. Feed them till they quit eating. And then don't stop feeding, just cut it back. The thing about the Texas Freshwater Fishery Center, you guys have the ability to flush water through there. You can pump water out of Lake Athens and keep your water happy. The problem with overfeeding fish is it tends to deteriorate your water quality. So I would recommend feeding even when they slow down. Just don't necessarily stop feeding, just cut it way, way, way back, because some of your bluegills are going to eat that feed as well, and the catfish are going to eat some of it as well. They just get real sluggish once the water temperature gets below about 55 degrees. There's your magic number, 55. What's the typical mortality rate for bass in small lakes less than 15 acres, Scott says. I've read anywhere from 15 to 60%. Obviously, will be a range. Hey, Fred, I was hoping you'd be on here tonight. I got something for you here in a minute. Obviously, there will be a range due to several factors. Yes, that's absolutely true. When you start looking at the way nature works, nature's mission is to replace the fish that disappear. So, if the mortality rate's 15%, that means that there's not a whole lot of adults. I'm going to tell you the mortality rate's probably going to be more like 90 to 95%, which is pretty big. The typical mortality rate in a healthy pond in small lakes should be over 90%, maybe even more like 95%, because nature's mission is to replace the fish that disappear due to the natural attrition, which is being eaten by predators or dying of old age or whatever happens. So I'm going to tell you that attrition is probably, if we really looked at all the factors, it's probably going to be more like 90%, maybe more. Fred Bingaman, hey Fred, on that podium, if you can get somebody to go put it in your barn, I will come get it. My problem is trying to escape. I want to come and hang out with you in St. Louis and then scoot over to Brownstown and get that thing, but Jiminy, holy cow. This Hall of Fame thing has made me more busy. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, John, I did have a Freudian slip, and you need some smallmouth. Maybe you do. All right, Scott. My main question is how many more bass are introduced from the spawn versus mortality? It's really a 1-to-1. That's what it really is. Obviously, there's more of most ponds. Yeah, so the more fish that you harvest, then the better your survival rate's going to be. Like, for example, I just connected up with the Bass Pro Shops fish acquisition team. Dr. Quentin Phelps from Missouri State University, who's getting ready to go to South Dakota State University and take over a fisheries professor job there. He's one of Dave Willis's students. I'm so proud of that guy. We just connected a deal where Quentin and his graduate students electrofished and donated 425 bass to Bass Pro Shops acquisition team from Lake Deanna, which is owned by Greg Graves and his wife Deanna from Drexel, Missouri. That's where the lake is. And I totally expect to see a higher survival rate, higher recruitment rate of largemouth bass. Although we just stocked 100 tiger muskies and a bunch more walleye and a bunch more smallmouth bass into that lake to try to fill the void created by the harvest of those bass of that 67-acre lake. So, I hope that's a good answer. Yeah, check out Pond Gnome. Yep, Josh is feeding. Danny Mack, I've applied a buffered alum to my 0.4 acre foot pond in the past. 80 pounds of 50/50 alum and calcium carbonate. Recently spread about 5 pounds of pure alum. And I've lost several bluegill all sizes. My water hardness and alkalinity are very high. Given by supplied limestone aquifer, well water, minor rainfalls. pH is 8.3. I've achieved 4 feet of clarity. Odds are pretty high that those bluegill probably died, because when you added that buffered alum, it still affected your pH. It made a big change in the in the pH before it could be buffered. Now you're a nuclear scientist, you know how that works. But when you even when you change the water chemistry fractionally, if it varies disproportionately, even for a few minutes, it means like, let's say you and I take a dip for 3 seconds in a vat of hydrochloric acid and we get pulled out. We're probably not going to make it. You know, the fish, some of the weaker fish, even though that water chemistry was only affected for a short period of time. Y'all think I'm bored, but I'm not. Well, geez, here I am clicking on these things trying to get somewhere. But what my bet is that when you added that alum, that had a big impact. Hey, Dell, if you want to harvest a few yellow perch, do it. You just might want to replace them. Which you've obviously got a source. I don't know where you're buying your fish from. I'm trying to think of. I have no idea why I'm yawning. I know I'm hungry. My brain's deprived of oxygen. Good gosh, I'm trying to think of that fish hatchery out east of you. Anyway, you've got a source. There's several fish hatcheries there in the Finger Lakes. So if you want to harvest a few yellow perch and they're big enough, go do it. And if you see that they're not recruiting well, then I'd buy some more. Okay, I better have some water. Jay Timberman, I have a 3-acre lake in southern Illinois, primarily for trophy bluegills. I have hybrid bluegill, red ear sunfish, walleye, and hybrid striped bass. There's no largemouth or channel cats. I do feed them. Currently catching up 10-inch bills. Any suggestions? Yeah. Keep feeding those bluegills and don't harvest them. Those 10-inch bluegills are a year away from being 10.5 to 11-inch bluegills, and another year away from being 12. So keep feeding them and protect them. Harrison, you're killing me. We have 16 viewers, 78 comments from 16 people. All 17 people are watching me yawn. Yeah, you know what's really funny is all you turds are yawning too. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. 7:28. This is long enough. I'm gonna go take a nap. So, as always, I got to tell you, I deeply appreciate the handful of people that watch this. And as long as there's at least 14 people watching it, I'll probably keep doing it. Several people tell me they come back and watch it later because they were in church on a Tuesday. I'm not sure I believe that. So, hey, I do appreciate it. PondBoss.com. More Institute of Higher Pondology stuff coming up. We'll let you know about that. So, I don't know where I'll be next Tuesday, but I'm probably going to be hanging out with you. So, until next Tuesday, adios for now.